Scream 2, a 1997 American slasher film directed by the amazing Wes Craven and written by Kevin Williamson. The movie brings back Sidney Prescot, Gail Weathers, and all of the survivors from the first Scream movie. Of course, Ghostface is back and is badder than ever. Scream 2, in my opinion, is one of the best sequels to come out of the Scream universe, and this sequel definitely ramps up the intense factor. So get yourselves comfy and let's take a look at 10 moments from the 1997 film Scream 2. Number 10, the cinema scene. Okay, so the opening scene in this movie is my all-time favourite Scream opening scene. It's completely different to all of the other Scream movies where a victim is being tormented on the phone in their house. So we have Maureen and Phil go into the theatre to see the premiere of Stab, a movie that has been created on the previous murders that happened in Scream 1. So Maureen and Phil take their seats in a very busy theatre that's full of people dressed up as Ghostface, and it's totally crazy in there. Maureen isn't best pleased about coming to see a horror movie as she isn't a fan of horrors. Anyway, when her boyfriend Phil goes to the men's restroom, he hears some weird noises coming from the cubicle next to him, and when he presses his ear up against the wall, the real Ghostface killer is on the other side and stabs a knife right through the cubicle wall and straight into Phil's head and killing him. Ghostface then goes back into the theatre and sits next to Maureen, and Maureen thinks that it's her boyfriend under the mask just playing games. When Maureen discovers blood all over Ghostface, Ghostface pulls out a knife and stabs Maureen in the stomach. Maureen then gets up and tries to get some help, but with all the crazy fans cheering and throwing popcorn in the dark, nobody notices that Maureen needs some serious help. Ghostface even continues to stab Maureen over and over again in the cinema all around the people, and it isn't until when Maureen climbs onto the screen stage with stab wounds in her stomach, everyone then realizes that something is very wrong. Maureen then does an almighty scream before dying on stage in front of everyone. Honestly, I think this is the best opening scene in any Scream movie. Number 9, CeCes Death. A classic scene now in our next spot, and CeCe is home alone and on the phone to one of her friends when another call comes in, and of course it's the killer. But CeCe seems to think that it's her male friend called Ted. That is until when the killer asks that famous question, "Do you want to die tonight, CeCe?" The killer then toys with CeCe for a bit and she starts hearing noises coming from inside the house. Before you know it, Ghostface comes flying out from one of the doors and chases CeCe up the stairs. Ghostface then manages to catch up with CeCe and throws her through a glass door and onto the balcony. He then stabs CeCe a few times in the back and then throws her off the balcony, killing her instantly. Number 8, Sidney is attacked. After CeCe's body is found, everyone from the party comes running over to see what's happening, including Gail and Dewey, where they start to realise that it's all happening all over again. Sidney is with her boyfriend Derek, and they're watching from across the street where the party was being held. And when Sidney goes into the house alone to grab her things, the phone rings, and when Sidney answers, it's Ghostface saying, "Hello, Sidney." Sidney then challenges Ghostface to come out and show his face, to which Ghostface obliges and attacks Sidney in the house. Sidney then manages to run through the house and to the back door, where boyfriend Derek arrives and goes into the house to investigate. We then hear a tussle, and then Dewey arrives on the scene and goes in to check what's happening. Dewey finds Derek in the corridor on the floor with a sliced wound to his arm, and I think this is the moment where Sidney realizes that the murders are happening all over again. Number 7, Rehearsal Freak Out. A very dramatic moment now in our next spot, and Sidney is having a dress rehearsal for a show that she is in where she's playing Cassandra. During the rehearsal, Sidney is on the stage with a choir of people who are all dressed up in brown cloaks and all wearing face masks. During a scene where the choir of people chase Sidney's character around the stage with fake daggers, Sidney actually sees Ghostface dressed up in one of the brown cloaks, and Sidney starts to freak out, but everyone thinks that this is just Sidney acting for the play. Sidney eventually falls to the floor after literally running into Ghostface, but Ghostface runs off and disappears as the rest of the choir people take off their masks. Now, when I first saw this scene, I always wondered whether if this was all actually in Sidney's head, but you actually literally see Ghostface running away just before the show stops, so I genuinely think that this was Ghostface on the stage taunting and attacking Sidney. And it's an amazing, great scene due to how dramatic it all is, because the Scream films are well known for being amazingly dramatic. Number 6, Randy's death. I can remember when I first saw this scene, I was genuinely shocked when Randy was killed off. I honestly thought he was gonna make it to the end of the movie. So, there's a scene where Randy, Dewey, Gail, and Gail's cameraman are sitting in a park under a tree, and Gail's mobile phone keeps ringing, but Randy ends up answering and telling the person on the other end of the phone that Gail isn't here, but of course, it's the killer. The killer lets Randy know that he can see them all, and Dewey and Gail go looking around the park for someone else who's using a mobile phone, while Randy keeps the killer talking. Randy and the killer throw insults at each other over and over again, before Randy is pulled into Gail Weathers' van, where a big struggle begins, but then Randy is stabbed and killed. When Dewey, Gail, and the cameraman arrive back on the scene, they see blood dripping from the van, and when they open the door, they are horrified when they see Randy's bloodied dead body. It's a great scene, but it's just a shame that it had to be Randy. Number 5, Dewey and Gail are attacked. While Dewey and Gail are watching some camera footage back from earlier on, hoping that it might have caught the killer on camera, Ghostface is spotted in the camera control room. Dewey goes up to try and catch Ghostface, but then Ghostface appears down by Gail and attacks her. Gail then makes a run for it, and Ghostface chases her through the school halls, and Gail ends up in one of the control rooms where there is a soundproof window behind her, and Dewey is on the other side banging on the soundproof glass trying to get Gail's attention. All of a sudden, Ghostface arrives and stabs Dewey from behind. Gail turns around and sees the attack but can't do anything to help Dewey. Eventually, Dewey ends up pressed against the glass with blood oozing from his mouth, and Gail is on the other side of the glass totally powerless as she watches Dewey fall to the ground. It's a great dramatic moment, and to be honest guys, I actually preferred this scene to Dewey's real death scene in Scream 5. Number 4, intense car scene. Now, this really is an intense scene in my next spot. So, the cops are taking both Sidney and friend Harley to a safe place until they catch Ghostface. But, before they even get a chance to drive off, Ghostface attacks the coppers sitting in the front. One of them has his throat sliced and the other tries to fight Ghostface outside of the car, but Ghostface gets the upper hand and gets into the cop car, and as Ghostface goes to drive off with Sidney and Harley, the cop threatens to shoot Ghostface, but he ends up just putting his foot down and drives at the copper. The copper is then on the bonnet of the car, and Ghostface ends up losing control and there is a huge crash, and the copper has his head impaled with a metal pole. It's quite gruesome. In fact, it might be one of the most gruesome deaths on Scream. Ghostface is knocked out in the front seat, and Sidney ends up climbing through to the front to try and get out of the car, but she ends up having to climb over Ghostface and out of the window. But before she does, she goes to unmask Ghostface, but before she gets the chance, she ends up leaning on the horn on the car. So instead, Sidney climbs out through the window, and boy is it intense. Sidney manages to get out, and now it's Harley's turn. She climbs out the same way as Sidney, and you literally hold your breath. The whole time you were waiting for Ghostface to wake up, and you literally end up watching this scene through your hands over your face. And honestly guys, I remember when I first saw this scene, my heart was pounding through my chest. Number 3, Harley's Death. Okay, so even though Sidney and Harley manage to get out of the crashed car and all seems well, it is very short-lived. As they run off, Sidney decides that she wants to go back and unmask Ghostface once and for all, but Sidney gets back to the car and Ghostface has disappeared. When Sidney turns to her friend Harley in the distance, Ghostface pops out from around the corner and stabs Harley to death in front of a very distraught Sidney. Number 2, Killer Reveal. It's the moment we all wait for, the killer reveal, and they did not let us down in this movie. After Sidney arrives at the auditorium, she finds Derek tied to the cross after a frat party. And then Ghostface arrives in the distance and reveals himself as Mickey. And Mickey tries to make out that Sidney's boyfriend Derek is his accomplice. So Sidney starts to have doubts, but then Mickey ends up shooting and killing boyfriend Derek in front of Sidney. Mickey then tells Sid that he wants the police to catch him because he is going to blame the movies for his madness, claiming that these days is all about the trial. After Mickey and Sid have a little bit of a tussle, in walks killer number 2, Billy Loomis's mother, who's been posing in the movie under Debbie Salt, a news reporter. It's a brilliant reveal, and of course Billy's mum is after revenge because of her son's death. Mickey and Debbie met on a psycho website forum, and Debbie was paying Mickey's tuition fees in return from him helping her with the killings. However, in a final twist, Debbie tells Mickey that there isn't going to be a trial, and she ends up shooting him dead. Before we get to number 1, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button. We currently upload new videos every week and we are really looking to grow this channel, so make sure to hit that notification bell as well. Number 1, the final showdown. So, with Mickey dead and Gail wounded, it's a battle between Sid and Billy's mother. And my god, Billy's mother is one crazy bitch. Just look at her eyeballs, they are literally popping out of her head. She is crazy. Sidney and Debbie have a really intense standoff where Sidney even throws insults at Billy Loomis, which just ends up pissing off his mum even more. Before you know it, they both end up having a fight. And then Sidney manages to get into the backstage where she ends up cutting down a load of ceiling effects which come crashing down onto the stage around Debbie. When the fake bricks come tumbling down on top of Debbie, Sidney thinks that she's dead, but Debbie comes bursting out from under these bricks like a crazy zombie and lunges a knife attack at Sidney, and it's absolutely insane. Before you know it, Cotton Wary arrives on the scene and Debbie holds Sidney at knife point, trying to convince Cotton that Sidney should die after her lies put him in prison for something that he didn't do. Now for a moment it looked like that Cotton was going to go along with Debbie's plan, but Cotton actually double bluffs her and ends up shooting Debbie down. And of course, this wouldn't be a Scream film if one of the killers didn't come back alive. So, of course, Mickey lunges back up before being shot down by Gail and Sidney. Sidney then shoots Mrs. Loomis right in the head, just to make sure that she is really dead. It's a brilliant ending to a brilliant movie. And that was 10 moments from Scream 2. So guys, we must have some Scream fans here. What did you guys think of Scream 2? Is it a sequel that you enjoy, or is it not your cup of tea? Let me know. Let me know all of your thoughts and opinions in the comments box below. Okay guys, well thank you all for watching. Make sure you smash that subscribe button, stay safe, and I'll see you all again very soon.